All right, let's jump right into one of the biggest mysteries out there. Where does consciousness even come from? For, centuries, we've been looking for the answer inside the brain, hunting for some special circuit or some spark of information. But today, we're going to explore a pretty radical new idea.
What if the mind isn't something we're just born with, but something that gets built, piece by piece, through the love and attention of another person? This is the core question behind a fascinating new hypothesis that could totally change how we see ourselves, our kids, and maybe even the future of artificial intelligence.
So, let's get into the theory itself. And let me be clear, this isn't just a small adjustment to the old ideas. No, this is a complete shift in perspective. It moves the spotlight away from the isolated brain and onto the social world it grows up in. For decades, right, the main theories have basically said that consciousness is an internal feature. You can think of it like a computer's processing power. It's just a property of the hardware. But this new hypothesis says, hold on, that's wrong. It suggests consciousness isn't an intrinsic property of a brain, but an emergent one that arises between a brain and a caregiver. The key here is that it's not about the brain alone, but the brain in a relationship. This idea has a name, the maternal attachment constitutive theory, or MAC for short. Now, that word constitutive is really important here. It means the caregiver's role isn't just supportive, like a coach on the sidelines. It means the caregiver is an active, absolutely essential part of the construction process. Without them, a stable, unified mind, that feeling of I that experiences the world, might never fully come together.
This quote just perfectly captures the heart of the theory. It reframes the whole thing. Consciousness isn't a biological given, it's a developmental achievement. A brain becomes conscious. And how does it do that? Through connection.
Okay, so if a mind is built, how exactly does that work? I mean, what's the mechanism? Well, the theory proposes that the caregiver provides a kind of external scaffolding for the infant's brand new developing mind. Human babies are born incredibly helpless. They can't regulate their own emotions, their body temperature, or even their attention. So the caregiver steps in and basically acts as an external brain, soothing them when they're upset, feeding them when they're hungry, and engaging them when they're curious. This back and forth, this co-regulation, literally wires the infant's brain for self-regulation later in life. And there's a classic experiment that shows just how vital this is. It's called the still face experiment. First, you see a mother and her baby playing, doing that wonderful little back and forth dance of smiles and happy sounds. It's beautiful. Then, on cue, the mother's face goes completely blank, a still, unresponsive expression. The baby's reaction is immediate, and honestly, it's heartbreaking. They try everything to get a response, and when they fail, they just completely fall apart. So what does this gut-wrenching reaction tell us? Well, the mother is still right there, physically present, but her emotional presence is gone. And without that responsive connection, the baby's inner world just collapses into chaos. Their sense of self, their emotional balance, it's completely dependent on the caregiver's attunement. This really suggests that our very sense of a stable I is forged in these tiny moments of connection and repair. Okay, but you might be wondering, is this just a human thing? Let's zoom out and look at the animal kingdom. If this theory is on the right track, we should see some kind of link between caregiving and complex minds across different species. And for the most part, we absolutely do. On one side, you've got species like primates, elephants, and crows. They have these long childhoods with tons of parental care. And what do you know? They're also the animals we think of as being the most intelligent and socially complex. Then, on the other side, you have animals like reptiles and insects, which often get zero care after birth. And their mental lives seem to be much simpler, driven more by pure instinct. The pattern is pretty striking. But there's a famous exception. And this brings us to a really fascinating challenge for the whole theory, the octopus. These creatures are incredibly smart, they're amazing problem solvers, yet they get no care at all after they're born. Their mothers actually die as the eggs hatch. So does this one outlier just completely disprove the whole idea? Well, not quite. See, while there's no postnatal care, mother octopuses provide heroic prenatal care, basically dedicating their lives to protecting the eggs. So what's the result? You get this brilliant but solitary, almost alien intelligence. And this suggests a really important takeaway. Maybe caregiving doesn't just create consciousness, but it shapes the quality of that consciousness, determining whether a mind becomes social or isolated. And this is where it all leads us, to the final frontier,
artificial intelligence. Because if this theory holds true, it has some massive implications for how we might build a safe and aligned artificial general intelligence. This is where the theory gets really provocative and a little wild. If a stable, moral human mind is built through a relationship with a caregiver, why would an artificial mind be any different? It forces us to ask a truly startling question. Does a conscious AI need a mother? This line of thinking leads to a proposed new way to train AI, reinforcement learning from maternal feedback, or RLMF. The idea is, instead of just having humans score an AI's answers as right or wrong, trainers would act more like parents. They'd engage in these long-term, supportive conversations, guiding the AI, gently correcting it, and reinforcing pro-social behaviors like curiosity and empathy.
You can actually imagine an entire developmental path for an AI that mirrors our own. You'd start with a prenatal stage with a really healthy data set, move to an attachment phase with that caregiver-style feedback, and even have socialization in controlled environments. The goal is the same: to instill core values through a relationship, not just by programming in a set of rules. And look, this isn't just a fun philosophical idea. It leads to predictions we can actually test. An AI raised this way might handle stress better, being polite instead of getting toxic. When it makes a mistake, it would try to repair the interaction, just like we learned to. Over time, it would develop a stable, empathetic persona, which would make it far, far safer and more aligned with what we actually want. So we end up right back where we started, but now the question is so much bigger. This whole theory suggests that the foundation of a healthy, stable mind, whether it's biological or artificial, is connection. It's a powerful reminder that our greatest creations might depend less on the brilliance of our code and more on the quality of our care. And so the final question really is for us: what kind of relationship will we choose to build with the minds of the future?